Hey everyone, welcome to the Industry Show. I'm your host, Nitin Bajaj, and joining me today is Lindsay Mitrosilis, the hiring and firing coach for business owners. Lindsay, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. So, in a minute, tell us who is Lindsay Mitrosilis.
So, I'm a natural born entrepreneur, and I love to tell a story about this. When I was a kid, about 5, 6 years old, we would have garage sales every single month. And my grandpa would come down and he'd bring a box of donuts for everybody. Well, I would take that box of donuts and I'd put it in my radio flyer wagon and I'd walk around the neighborhood and I'd sell donuts. And I feel like that has always really stuck with me. I've always been working. Ever since I was 12 years old, I've had a job. And so I love to tell people I am an entrepreneur through and through. And that is what's really gotten me to where I am today and why I love to help other female entrepreneurs in their journey, especially when it comes to the people management side of their business with the hiring and firing coaching. So that's me.
What led you to this?
So when I first started my career outside of when I got out of college, well, at the time, no one was hiring. So I started as a waitress. And then I found myself in IT staffing of all things, which I had never heard about. A friend of mine from college had reached out and said, hey, I think you'd be really, really good at this job. Here's the job description. Let me know if you want to interview. And I thought, IT staffing, how boring is that? And then I opened his email and I looked at the job description. It said, you can take clients to happy hours, football games, take them out to do fun things. And I thought, okay, whatever that is, I'm into that.
Yes.
So that really
paid while I'm doing that.
And get paid. It was so cool. And I was like, oh, this is like sales. And so I think us as, natural born entrepreneurs and business owners, you have that like sales drive in you somewhere. And so that really kicked in for me. And that's really how I got started in the recruiting space. And then, which I always say, you don't choose recruiting, recruiting chooses you. This isn't typically an easy route, but here we are almost 10 years later in staffing and now helping, like I said, small business owners with the people management aspect of the business.
So working with a lot of the business owners and being one yourself and being specifically a female entrepreneur, what are some things that you've observed, some good, some maybe not as good, that you think are worth sharing with us?
It's interesting. It's kind of off topic of staffing. I'd say in general, business owners, I'd say even more specifically female business owners, the one good thing about female business owners is there's so much passion in what we want to do, and we want to serve people so much. Mm-hmm. On the flip side, a lot of us get this, what we call imposter syndrome, where we just don't think our ideas and what we could do are good enough. Yeah. And so many entrepreneurs get stopped and they get limited by that. And so that's one thing I see. It's this weird dichotomy of like, we've got this passion we want to serve, and then we get stuck in our head of we're not good enough. Right. So I see that a lot with female entrepreneurs.
So, seems like that's your ideal customer because you understand them so well. How do they find you?
Most of my clients have either been through referral based, they've been through other networking groups. A lot of things are done on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. So it's just various platforms really, and just having conversations with people.
What's your hiring philosophy, especially helping other business owners?
That's a great question. I love that you asked this. So I would say to be very, very clear on what it is you're looking for in your hire. What I mean by that is, if you find yourself with a list of that you want this person to do, it's way too much. At this point, you're looking for a unicorn, and you don't want to invest or have somebody control that much of your business, if that makes sense, because then you're very reliable on one person. And if they go away, or you can't pay them as much, or a better opportunity comes along, all of that shuts down. So I always recommend cutting that list into about 4 to 5 things you really need this person to focus on, and get very clear as to how that's going to help support your business and the goals and objectives that you have throughout the next, 18 months, 2 years. For some small business owners, hiring 4 to 5 people is not doable for them. So I would always suggest, and what I do with my clients is, well, let's look at what can be outsourced to maybe not an employee, but something you can just simply outsource. Let's look at the options for hiring. Maybe it's just a contract for a certain amount of time to help you get ramped up in a project or an initiative that you have. And then let's look at the employee that you would like to bring on. This is a very long-term person.
What motivates you to keep going?
That's such a good question. I would say always check your mindset. And what are you reading? What are you listening to? What books are you listening to, or podcasts are you divulging in? Because I will say that your input is probably the first priority for a business owner and entrepreneur. Because we are going to have those down times, but what is it that we're leaning on to get us back up? And I always say it's your input. And the second thing I would say is, what are you doing to get creative? Maybe sometimes we're in a rut because we're just doing the same thing and it's too mundane. I'd say a lot of entrepreneurs, we tend to have that shiny penny syndrome. So I would say be careful with that, but think about ways that can be creative, that you can be creative in your business, maybe focusing on the same product or solution, but somehow implement some creativity there, because that's what sparks us. That's what gets us out of bed in the morning. That's what excites us about our business.
How to use maybe creativity or just even, how to get the juices flowing as you start looking at LinkedIn.
Most people identify LinkedIn as this online resume, this virtual resume, and it is so not that anymore. There are people on there that are using it to, really, if you want to be seen as the thought leader, the expert in your space, if you want to get more speaking engagements or podcast interview requests, all of those things are happening for people on LinkedIn that are, as you said, getting creative. So they're writing blog posts, they're posting videos, they're making smaller text posts. There's different posts that you can make, but they're just speaking to their ideal audience on this on this platform.
Do you have any recommendations for business owners as we face one of the most challenging times in our lifetime?
I would say the advice I have for business owners right now is to, the biggest thing, honestly, adapt or die. I know that sounds a little harsh, but it's really important to just be creative and just we've got to know that industries are changing, but it doesn't mean that we can't continue to do business. I want to say that most businesses, successful businesses, come from depressions, recessions, and things like that, because that's when people have to start thinking creatively about how they approach business, a new solution. And if you can do that, you will reap the benefits and the rewards of that on the other side of this, truly.